Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Welcome back to the daily readings of Srila Prabhupada's books. We started, more than 2 years ago, reading live stream every day. We missed about a month recently due to my move over to the UK and the state I was in. But we're back into the groove, happily and fortunately. And we're living in a world that's changing very, very rapidly. A new reality. People are learning how to live without some of the major distractions and social venues that they normally go to in order to distract themselves from the reality. And reading this Srimad Bhagavatam daily in the midst of this pandemic lockdown, where a good 80-90% of the people in the world are locked down and can't really go out and move around. In the meantime, there's 20 years record positive air pollution. In other words, the air pollution is diminishing. You can begin to see things in the rivers and streams that you couldn't see before, as the factories and different things that pollute the earth are being forced to shut down by this little virus. And we don't know what that's going to mean, when it finally passes through, this virus, which is very deadly, much more deadly than some people are talking about. Oh, it's just like a flu, or it's just like this, or it's just like that. No, it's much, much different. Because there's never been a situation like this in which such a large percentage of the population of the earth are being so dramatically affected. So that's evidence. Whatever anybody says, whatever anybody thinks, or what theories they have, that's the clear, hard evidence that the laws of karma, the laws of nature are at work, and for all the misbehavior and breaking of the laws of nature that has been going on the earth, especially this last 200-300 years, Mother Nature is pushing back, and we're learning to have to live with it. But those of us who are attached to hearing the glories of the Lord every day, we are tasting even more than usual because of the situation. It's bringing us closer together. It's allowing us to hear deeper because of the natural consequence of the seriousness of the situation. So I pray every day that all of us can hear more and more seriously the Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, and Chaitanya Charitamrita. As soon as we finish the Bhagavatam, we'll start the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Welcome aboard, all of you out there in cyberspace. This is a workshop for learning to read Srila Prabhupada's books without talking about how to read Prabhupada's books, just by reading Prabhupada's books. That's the need of the day, the great need of the day. We can talk with a lot of words, and we can talk with academic language in order to cleverly present what we should and shouldn't do. But the fact of the matter is, at the end of the 16th chapter of the Gita, Krishna says we should consult Shastra to determine what we should do and what we shouldn't do, what our duty is and what our duty isn't. So these books are meant to be heard, they're meant to be assimilated, and they're meant to reform our character. So let us pray that we become reformed enough that we can give shelter to masses of people now who are suffering so much for a lack of spiritual understanding, spiritual knowledge. Srimad Bhagavatam Mahima Stotram. We start with this every day. The prayer glorifying the Srimad Bhagavatam by Srila Sanatana Goswami, one of our main predecessor acharyas, senior disciple of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, It goes like this. Sarva Shastrabdi Piyush Sarva Vedaika Satpala Sarva Siddhanta Ratnadya Sarva Lokaika Drikprada. O nectar from the ocean of all scriptures, singular fruit of all the Vedas, rich mine of the precious gems of all conclusive truths, you are the only giver of sight to all the worlds. Sarva Bhagavata Prana Srimad Bhagavata Prabho Kalidvan Nudita Ditya Sri Krishna Parivartita. O life air of all the Supreme Lord's devotees, O Master Srimad Bhagavatam, you are the sun risen in the darkness of Kali. You are the exact image of Sri Krishna. Paramananda Pataya Prema Varshakshadayate Sarvada Savasevyaya Shri Krishnaya Namostume. I bow down to you, who were supremely blissful to read. Your every syllable pours down a flood of prema. You can always be served by everyone. You are Sri Krishna himself. Madeka Bando Matsangin Madguru Man Mahadana Mannishtadanga Madbhagya Mad Anandana Mostute. My only friend, my constant companion, my spiritual master, my great wealth, my savior, my good fortune, my source of ecstasy, I bow down to you. Asadu sadutadayin atini chochata kada hanamunchagadachin mam premna rit kantayospuda. O bestower of saintliness to the unsaintly, O exalter of the most fallen, please never leave me. Always appear in my heart and my voice with pure love. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So, we've reached the 25th and 26th chapter verse of chapter 27. Krishna is taking Uddhava through all the phases and ways of worshipping Krishna and understanding Krishna and ourselves and the world around us. Now we've reached the chapter in which he's describing to Uddhava the process of deity worship. And we've reached text 25 and 26. Krishna is speaking. The worshipper should first imagine my seat as decorated with the personified deities of religion, knowledge, renunciation, and opulence, and with my 9 spiritual energies. He should then think of the Lord's sitting place as an 8-petaled lotus, effulgent, with the saffron filaments within its whorl. Then, following the regulations of both the Vedas and the Tantras, he should offer me water for washing the feet, water for washing the mouth, arghya, and other items of worship. By this process, he achieves both material enjoyment and liberation. Purport. According to Srila Sridhar Swami, religion, knowledge, renunciation, and opulence are the legs of the Lord's sitting platform and occupy the 4 corners, beginning with the southeast. Irreligion, ignorance, attachment, and wretchedness are the intermediate legs standing in the 4 directions, beginning with the east. The 9 Shaktis, or potencies of the Lord, are Vimala, Utkarshini, Jnana, Jnana, Kriya, Yoga, Pravi, Satya, Ishana, and Anugraha. Text 27. One should worship in order the Lord's Sudarshan disc, his Panchajanya conch shell, his club, sword, bow, arrows, and plow, his Mushala weapon, his Kaustuba gem, his flower garland, and the Srivat's curl of hair on his chest. Text 28. One should worship the Lord's associates, Nanda and Sunanda, Garuda, Prachanda and Chanda, Mahabala and Bala, and Kumuda and Kumadekshana. 29. With rituals such as Prokshana, one should worship Durga, Vinayaka, Vyas, Vishwaksena, the spiritual masters, and the various demigods. All these personalities should be in their proper places, facing the deity of the Lord. Purport. According to Srila Jiva Goswami, the Ganesh and Durga mentioned in this verse are not the same personalities present within the material world. Rather, they are eternal associates of the Lord in Vaikuntha. In this world, Ganesh, the son of Lord Shiva, is famous for awarding financial success, and the goddess Durga, the wife of Lord Shiva, is famous as the external illusory potency of the Supreme Lord. The personalities mentioned here, however, are eternally liberated associates of the Lord who reside in the spiritual sky, beyond the material manifestation. Srila Jiva Goswami quotes from various Vedic literatures to prove that the name Durga may also indicate the internal potency of the Lord, who is non-different from him. The external or covering potency of the Lord expands from this original Durga. The Durga of the material world, called Mahamaya, assumes the function of bewildering the living entities. Thus, a devotee should not fear becoming polluted by worshipping the Durga mentioned here, who has the same name as illusion, but rather the devotee must show respect for these eternal servitors of the Lord in Vaikuntha. Text 30 and 31. The worshipper should bathe the deity every day, as opulently as his assets permit, using waters scented with sandalwood, ushiru root, camphor, kumkum, and a guru. He should also chant various Vedic hymns, such as the Anuvaka, known as the Swarna Garma, and the Mahapurusha Vidya, the Purusha Sukta, and various songs of the Sita, such as the Rajana and the Rohingya. Purport. The Purusha Sukta prayer, beginning with Om Sahasra Shirsha Purushak Sahasraksha Sahasrapad, is contained within the Rig Veda. Text 32. My devotee should then lovingly decorate me with clothing, a Brahmana thread, various ornaments, marks of tilak, and garlands, and he should anoint my body with fragrant oils, all in the prescribed manner. Purport. Srila Sridhar Swami quotes Lord Sri Vishnu's instructions to Ambarish Maharaj in the Vishnu Dharma Upapurana as follows. Absorbing your mind completely in the deity, you should give up all other shelter and consider the deity your intimate well-wisher. You should mentally worship him and meditate upon him while you walk, while you stand, while you sleep, and eat. You should see the deity in front of you, behind, above, below, and on both sides. In this way you should constantly remember my deity form. In the Gautamiya Tantra, one is enjoined to give the deity of the Lord a Brahmana thread, if possible, one made of gold. In the Nrsimha Purana, it is stated, if one offers to Lord Govinda a yellow sacred containing 3 strands of silk, he will become an expert in Vedanta. Text 33. The worshipper should faithfully present me with water for washing my feet and mouth, fragrant oils, flowers, and unbroken grains, along with incense, lamps, and other offerings. 34. Within his means, the devotee should arrange to offer me sugar candy, sweet rice, ghee, shashkuli, rice flour cakes, apupa, various sweet cakes, modaka, steamed rice flour dumplings filled with sweet coconut and sugar, samyava, wheat cakes made with ghee and milk and covered with sugar and spices, yogurt, vegetable soups, and other palatable foods. So if anyone wonders whether or not there's instructions on what to feed Krishna, it's right here. Purport. One can acquire detailed information of proper and improper foods to offer the deity worship in deity worship by consulting Sri Hari Bhakti Vilas, 8th Vilas, verses 152 through 164. Text 35. On special occasions, and daily if possible, the deity should be massaged with ointment, shown a mirror, offered a twig for cleaning his teeth, bathed with the 5 kinds of nectar, offered all kinds of opulent foods, and entertained with singing and dancing. Purport. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur describes the process of deity worship as follows. First, the deity's teeth should be cleaned, and his body massaged with fragrant oil and rubbed with vermilion, camphor powder, and so forth. Then he should be bathed with fragrant water and the 5 kinds of nectar. Next, one should offer valuable silk garments and jeweled ornaments to the deity, smear his body with sandalwood paste, and offer him garlands and other gifts. After this, one should hold a mirror in front of the deity and then offer fragrant oil, flowers, incense, lamps, and scented water for refreshing the mouth. One should offer all types of palatable foods, fragrant water, betel nuts, garlands, arati lamps, a bed to rest on, and so on. One should also fan the deity and perform instrumental music, singing, and dancing. This deity worship must be performed on special occasions, like religious holidays, or else, if one can afford it, daily. According to Srila Sridhar Swami, Ekadashi is an appropriate day for performing special deity worship. Text 36. In an arena constructed according to scriptural injunctions, the devotee should perform a fire sacrifice, utilizing the sacred belt, the sacrificial pit, and the altar mound. When igniting the sacrificial fire, the devotee should bring it to a blaze with wood piled up by his own hands. Text 37. After spreading kusha grass on the ground and sprinkling it with water, one should perform the anvadana ritual according to the prescribed rules. Then one should arrange the items to be offered as oblations and should sanctify them with water from the sprinkling vessel. The worshipper should next meditate upon me within the fire. Purport. Srila Jiva Goswami mentions that one should meditate upon the Lord as the Supersoul within the sacrificial fire. Text 38 to 41. The intelligent devotee should meditate upon that form of the Lord, whose color is like molten gold, whose 4 arms are resplendent with the conch shell, disc, club, and lotus flower, and who is always peaceful and dressed in a garment colored like the filaments within a lotus flower. His helmet, bracelets, belt, and fine arm ornaments shine brilliantly. The symbol of Srivats is on his chest, along with the glowing Kaustuba gem and a garland of forest flowers. The devotee should then worship that Lord by taking pieces of firewood soaked in the sacrificial ghee and throwing them into the fire. He should perform the ritual of aghara, presenting into the fire the various items of oblation drenched in ghee. He should then offer to 16 demigods, beginning with Yamaraj, the oblation called Srishtikrit, reciting the basic mantras of each deity and the 16-line Purusha Sukta hymn. Pouring one oblation after each line of the Purusha Sukta, he should utter the particular mantra, naming each deity. 42. Having thus worshipped the Lord in the sacrificial fire, the devotee should offer his obeisances to the Lord's personal associates by bowing down, and should then present offerings to them. He should then chant quietly the Mula Mantra of the deity of the Lord, remembering the absolute truth as the Supreme Personality, Narayana. Text 43. Once again, he should offer the deity water for washing his mouth, and he should give the remnants of the Lord's food to Vishwaksena. Then he should present the deity with fragrant perfume for the mouth and prepared betel nut. 44. Singing along with others, chanting loudly and dancing, acting out my transcendental pastimes, and hearing and telling stories about me, the devotee should for some time absorb himself in such festivity. Purport. A devotee engaged in regulated worship of the Supreme Lord should sometimes become ecstatically absorbed in chanting and hearing the pastimes of the Lord, dancing, and other festivities. The word muhurtam, for some time, indicates that a devotee should be careful not to neglect his regulative principles and service to the Lord in the name of so-called ecstasy. Although one may be ecstatically engaged in chanting, hearing, and dancing, he cannot give up the formality of regulated service to the Lord. Text 45. The devotee should offer homage to the Lord with all kinds of hymns and prayers, both from the Puranas and from other ancient scriptures, and also from ordinary traditions, praying, O Lord, please be merciful to me. He should fall down flat like a rod to offer his obeisances. 46. Placing his head at the feet of the deity, he should then stand with folded hands before the deity and pray, O my Lord, please protect me, who am surrendered unto you. I am most fearful of this ocean of material existence, standing as I am in the mouth of death. Text 47. Praying in this way, the devotee should respectfully place upon his head the remnants I offer to him. And if the particular deity is meant to be sent away at the end of the worship, then this should be performed. The devotee once again placing the light of the deity's presence inside the light of the lotus within his own heart. Text 48. Whenever one develops faith in me, in my form as the deity, or in other bona fide manifestations, one should worship me in that form. I certainly exist both within all created beings and also separately in my original form, since I am the Supreme Soul of all. Purport. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is worshipped according to the faith of a particular worshipper. The deity form, Archa, is specifically mentioned here because deity worship is essential for spiritual progress. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur mentions that inexperienced persons may think that the deity is meant for the sense gratification of the worshipper, since superficially the deity is made of external substances, such as marble or brass. But through the process of installing the deity, by chanting of authorized mantras, one invites the Supreme Personality of Godhead to enter the deity form. By regulated, faithful worship, one gradually understands that the deity is completely non-different from the Supreme Lord himself. At that stage, on the strength of deity worship, one rises to the second-class platform of devotional service. At this more developed stage, one desires to make friendship with other devotees of the Lord, as one becomes solidly established in the community of Vaishnavas, one completely gives up material life and gradually becomes perfect in Krishna consciousness. Text 49. By worshipping me through the various methods prescribed in the Vedas and Tantras, one will gain from me his desired perfection in both this life and the next. 50. The devotee should more fully establish my deity by solidly constructing a temple along with beautiful gardens. These gardens should be set aside to provide flowers for the regular deity worship, special deity processions, and holiday observances. Purport. Wealthy, pious persons should be engaged in constructing temples and gardens for the pleasure of the deity. The word dridham indicates that the most solid means of construction should be employed. 51. One who offers the deity gifts of land, markets, cities, and villages, so that the regular deity worship and special festivals of the deity may go on continually, will achieve opulence equal to my own. Purport. By placing tracts of land in the deity's name, there will be regular income for opulent deity worship, both from rent and from agricultural production. A worshipper who makes the arrangements mentioned above will certainly achieve opulence like that of the personality of Godhead. Text 52. By installing the deity of the Lord, one becomes king of the entire earth. By building a temple for the Lord, one becomes ruler of the three worlds. By worshipping and serving the deity, one goes to the planet of Lord Brahma, and by performing all three of these activities, one achieves a transcendental form like my own. 53. But one who simply engages in devotional service with no consideration of fruitive results attains me. Read that one again. After all the rituals, this is the essence. But one who simply engages in devotional service with no consideration of fruitive results attains me. Thus, whoever worships me according to the process I have described will ultimately attain pure devotional service unto me. Purport. The previous two verses were spoken by the Lord to attract those interested in fruitive results. And now, the ultimate purpose of worshipping the Lord is described. The ultimate goal of life, the ultimate goal in life is Lord Krishna himself. Love for the Lord is the highest bliss, although ordinary people cannot understand this. Text 54. Anyone who steals the property of the demigods or the brahmanas, whether originally given to them by himself, whether originally given to them by himself or someone else, must live as a worm in stool for 100 million years. 55. Not only the performer of the theft, but also anyone who assists him, instigates the crime, or simply approves of it, must also share the reaction in the next life. According to their degree of participation, they each must suffer a proportionate consequence. Purport. Stealing paraphernalia meant for worshiping the Supreme Lord or his authorized representatives should be avoided at all costs. Thus end the purports of the humble servants of His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada to the 11th Canto, 27th chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled Lord Krishna's Instructions on the Process of Deity Worship. Jai, the holy deity Archana worship of the Lord ki Jai, Shri Krishna ki Jai, Lord Uddhava ki Jai, Lord Premanandi, Hari Hari Bo. Okay. Moving on to chapter 28. Jnana Yoga. This chapter briefly summarizes the process of Jnana Yoga, which previous chapters described in detail. Every created thing in this universe is a material product of the three modes of nature, is subject to sensory perception, and is essentially unreal. Actually, the designations of good and bad that we assign to the various objects and activities of this world are all superficial. It is better to avoid condemning or praising anything of this world, because doing so simply entangles one in matter and deprives one of the higher goals of spiritual life. Hidden within every object of the material universe is the spirit soul, who underlies both the causes and products of manifest existence. One should see things in this light and thus move about the material world in a mood of detachment. As long as there is a relationship between the bodily senses, which are comprised of matter, and the soul, which is the reality, one will continue in false consciousness. Although material existence is unreal, those who lack discrimination remain entangled in the cycle of birth and death because of their absorption in sense gratification. All the phases of material life, such as birth, death, sorrow, and happiness, belong not to the soul, but to the materialistic false ego. By learning to distinguish between the soul and its opposite, matter, one can destroy this false identification. There is a single absolute truth present at the beginning and at the end of this world. During its interim or maintenance phase, the cosmic manifestation is also founded upon the same absolute truth. This absolute Brahman exists everywhere, both positively by its manifestations and negatively by its aloofness. Brahman is unique in being self-sufficient, whereas this world is the expansion of Brahman, produced through the material mode of passion. By the mercy of a bona fide spiritual master, one can understand the absolute truth and come to appreciate the non-spiritual nature of the material body and its extensions. Desisting from engagement in material sense enjoyment, one then becomes satisfied in the ecstasy of the self. Just as the sun remains untouched by the coming and going of clouds, the discriminating, liberated person remains unaffected by the activities of his senses. Nevertheless, until one becomes perfectly fixed in Bhakti Yoga, pure devotional service to the Supreme Lord, one should carefully avoid contacting material sense objects. An aspiring devotee may meet various obstacles and fall down, but in his next life he will continue his practice by dint of what he has already accomplished in devotional service. he will never again become bound up by the laws of karma. I think I should repeat that. This is pretty important. An aspiring devotee may meet various obstacles and fall down, but in his next life, he will continue his practice by dint of what he has already accomplished in devotional service. He will never again become bound up by the laws of karma. The man who is liberated and established in discrimination will under no circumstances seek false enjoyment by indulging in material sense gratification. He knows that the soul is changeless and that any contrary conception imposed on the pure self is sheer illusion. If during the immature stage of spiritual practice one suffers physical disease or other disturbances, the Vedas enjoin that he should certainly take proper measures to eradicate the problem. The prescribed remedies for lust and the other enemies of the mind are meditation on the Supreme Lord and Sankirtan, the loud chanting of his names. The remedy for the disease of false ego is rendering service to the Supreme Lord's saintly devotees. By practicing yoga, some non-devotees keep their bodies youthful and fit, and may even achieve mystic perfections or long life. But these attainments are actually worthless because they are perfections only of the material body. An intelligent person is therefore uninterested in this kind of process. Rather, by taking shelter of the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord, an aspiring devotee who is seriously dedicated to the Lord rids himself of all disturbances and becomes empowered to attain the highest perfection, the full bliss of spiritual life. And I'm going to stop here. That's 40 minutes. And we're going to ask if anybody has any points they would like to reflect on. As usual, Radharaman has his hand in the air before I got my sentence finished. Eagerness, utsahan. Go ahead, Radharaman.
We've got a few questions tonight because I can see Jasmine's also got one online. But there's a couple of things I noticed from the previous chapter. And this was nice. With the purport to 48, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, according to the faith of a particular worshipper, the deity form Archer is specifically mentioned here because deity worship is essential for spiritual progress. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur mentions that inexperienced persons may think that the deity is meant for the sense gratification of the worshipper, since superficially the deity is made of external substances such as marble or brass. But through the process of installing the deity by chanting of authorized mantras, one invites the Supreme Personality of Godhead to enter the deity form. By regulated factual worship, one gradually understands that the deity is non-different from the Supreme Lord himself. At that stage, on the strength of deity worship, one rises to the second-class platform of devotional service. At the more developed stage, one desires to make friendship with other devotees of the Lord, and one becomes solidly established in the community of Vaishnavas. One completely gives up material life and gradually becomes perfect in Krishna consciousness.
Yeah.
What I was thinking when I heard that was that we need to do deity worship.
Well, deity worship is not just a ritual. If deity worship becomes your religious life in terms of a part of your life and does not become your life, then it's something else. then it's on the Kanishta platform. And the recommendation here is that we come from the Kanishta platform to the Madhyam platform, in which we can see the Lord in the hearts of all, of the devotees especially, first, and then eventually in the hearts of all living beings. And therefore we know how to deal with people. We know how to deal with other devotees. And we can actually be in a community of the devotees as the worshippers of the Lord. Real community life, real social life, as exemplified in Goloka Vrindavan in the perfection, is when everyone only has one interest in heart, and that's to please Krishna. When the deity is seen to be material, in other words, if one is in a materialistic frame of mind and one enjoys worshipping the deity because he can touch marble or gold or some other kind of metal, or the opulent articles as jewels and incense and all the enjoyable articles that are meant to be enjoyed by the deity for the pleasure of the senses of the deity, then they're actually in hell. If they think that the body of the Lord, the deity form of the Lord, is actually marble or stone or whatever material substance, if they're not actually meditating on the Lord being there as the deity being the Lord. And that goes for the holy name, the worship of a holy name, because the deity worship is not the Yuga Dharma for the Kali Yuga. Deity worship is the Yuga Dharma for the Dwapara Yuga. So it's not the actual means of achieving the goal, but it is necessary, as Srila Prabhupada describes. And again, I will recommend for everyone who's listening, if they want to understand why it's so important, to read Madhya Lila, chapter 15, text 108. There, Srila Prabhupada develops a very wonderful purport, quoting all the different scriptures, why it's necessary to take initiation and become qualified to worship directly the deity of the Lord. All the different opulent rules and regulations and mantras and levels of opulence that are used to worship the deity of the Lord is done according to one's capacity. That was another statement that was made in what we just read. It's not that everyone has to do the same, or otherwise they're not properly situated. One has to do things according to their situation, to their capacity, to their ability. So the main thing is the mood. The main thing is the mood, is the devotion that we're offering. The Lord receives the devotion. He doesn't need the objects. He's the owner of everything. In the spiritual world, they cook things that we can't even imagine. And they have jewels that are so valuable we can't even imagine, etc., etc. You know, and their senses are saturated with love of God. So therefore, everything that they need to serve Krishna comes automatically. The way to do it comes automatically, because their bodies are spiritual, their minds are spiritual, their whole being is spiritual. So the deity worship is meant to practice while we're still in the material world and still conditioned by the modes of nature, to practice acting like we are associating with the Lord and serving the Lord's senses and pleasing the Lord's senses. You know, we have this process of, now we're going to hear about Jnana Yoga in this next chapter. We have a way of discriminating between matter and spirit. We have a way of meditating on the universal form of the Lord as the Lord. You know, and the parts of the universal form of the Lord remind us of parts of the bodily form of the Lord. You know, the clouds are the hair on his body, our hair in his head. The trees and the plants are the hairs in the body, and the rivers are the veins running through the body, and all these different things. You know, the birds, the artistic, can be seen to be a part of the Lord, a part of the external body of the Lord. But the Lord has his original spiritual form, and all these other processes, Jnana Yoga, Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Stanga Yoga, they're all meant to bring us to the point of Bhakti Yoga, where our hearts are spontaneously attracted to Krishna, and therefore everything that we see and feel and touch and smell at first remind us of Krishna, and then eventually are offered to Krishna with love. So it's a process. And the rules and regulations are extremely important as long as one is materially conditioned. As one becomes more and more advanced in devotional service, those rules and regulations are not as important. The loving feeling is most important. That is the loving service of the Lord. But that doesn't mean that we neglect worshiping the form of the Lord either. But in Kali Yuga it's difficult. Prabhupada said that our temples are meant to show the example of how to live with the Lord. Not very many people in the world can live in the temples. They're meant to show the example of how we can live in our own places. And we may not be able to perform the deity worship in the same way as the installed deities in the temple, which is described here. But according to our capacity, we do what we can do, and especially in the Kali Yuga, the Yuga Dharma is Harinam Sankirtan, means chanting japa. You notice that Prabhupada gave us four regulated principles to follow, or to avoid, and the chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra to be done without offenses. Those are the only vows that he gave us. We don't make a vow that we have to do this or that, but we have to chant 16 rounds minimum every day, and we have to avoid breaking the regulated principles. If we do those things, then gradually we will progress through the purification of the heart and the senses, and we can become a pure lover of Krishna. Those things are essential, and therefore those are the things that Prabhupada asked us to make a vow to do every day, without fail. Everything else is negotiable.
I just thought it was interesting, especially in view of what you just said, Maharaj, that a few verses on, it says, "But one who simply engages in devotional service with no consideration of fruitive results attains me. Thus whoever worships me according to the process I have described will ultimately attain pure devotional service unto me."
Yes.
Purport: the previous two verses were spoken by the Lord to attract those interested in fruitive activities,
Yes.
and now the ultimate purpose of worshipping the Lord is
Yes.
described.
Yes.
The ultimate goal in life is Lord Krishna himself. Love for the Lord is the highest bliss, although ordinary people cannot understand this.
Yes. And then, what does he say in the 18th chapter of the Gita? The end result, the end instruction, even after surrender to me only, explain this to others. There's nothing that pleases the Lord more than explaining these secrets to others and helping to bring them to spiritual life and to the lotus feet of the Lord. That's the goal, to get to that position where we become absorbed in preaching Krishna consciousness, spreading Krishna consciousness. And one who is always absorbed in thinking how to do that, whatever the degree of it is and whatever the external manifestation of it is, then they become dearest to Krishna. No one can become more dear. So that's the goal. Thank you.
So when Srila Bhaktisiddhanta made certain comments that he did, which seemed to be, how to say, about deity worship didn't seem so complimentary. It wasn't that he wasn't into deity worship, but he was just reminding us not to get stuck there and not to forget that the goal of actually pleasing Krishna and
Yes.
sharing Krishna consciousness with others.
Yes. He didn't want it to become a ritual. He didn't want us to get stuck there as in ritual. Okay, you said that Jasmine had something?
Jasmine and Charlie.
Jasmine and Charlie. Hare Bhakti Jasmine, so near and yet so far away. Just on the other side of Hythe and Folkestone.
Jasmine is asking, why would someone choose to worship a non-permanent deity or send the deity away?
Well, sometimes a person may be very poor. So poor they don't have anything to offer the Lord. There are people like that. And they may fashion a deity out of sand or out of clay or out of wood, and then worship the deity, and then have a process for greeting the deity and process for because we don't want to leave the Lord out there in the woods, just laying there in a, out in the elements without any facilities. It's a force of circumstance.
There's two more, one from Hannah and one from Charlie. I'll read Hannah's first.
Could you speak just a little bit louder? You speak so soft. I can hardly hear. It's like you're whispering.
Sorry. So this is from Hannah. It says, Hare Krishna Gurudev.
Haribol, Hannah.
Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. I was so happy to hear you read today. I felt Srila Prabhupada's compassion spewing out of the purports and translations.
Is that someone clapping for us? Because we're doing this yajna? Is it? Should we go out and wave and take a bow? Sounds like it. Okay, go ahead, sorry.
After reading rituals today, I was so in love with hearing the Lord say, quote, but one who simply engages in devotional service with no consideration of fruitive results attains me. Not a transcendental body, not opulence equal to the Lord, but Him. So beautiful. Anyone with a little bit of heart desires this. But my heart is rock solid and contaminated. When we desire things for ourselves in the name of service, how can we begin to see those feelings and thoughts as separate from us? I tend to be hard on myself or become afraid of my mind, but I know this is another form of attachment to it.
You have to become, you have to agree to take the process. You have to, it sounds like something's going on out there. Could you check it out? You have to agree to take the process. There's a process to purify the heart and purify the senses so that we can actually reach the soul beyond the false ego. Mainly what we're dealing with is a false ego, the identification with our body and our minds. But we are souls beyond the body and the minds. And there's a process for purifying our senses, and mainly it means regulating the senses and learning to live in goodness, in the mode of goodness. So it's up to each one of us. The instructions are there, and if we take them, then we will get the full result. And if we don't, we won't. We'll get those according to the degree of our submissiveness in devotional service. That's what submissiveness means. We may, if we want to be with the Lord, we want to feel the Lord, we want presence, we want to taste and smell and touch and dance and be with the Lord personally, then we have to have spiritual body. We can't do that in a material body. But what's the material body? It smells. It's so crazy. So it's not that you can be with the Lord directly, personally, in this gross material body. That's why in deity worship, the standards of cleanliness and purification and preparation before you, that's what these rituals are for. They're actually to get us to the point, you don't open your mouth and breathe on the Lord in front of the deity. And all this, what comes out of the body is horrible. There's all these different rules and regulations, but it's just meant for us to become more conscious and more clean and more attractive to the Lord. So if we really want the Lord, then we should want to make ourselves, purify ourselves, clean ourselves, and make ourselves acceptable to the Lord. So whatever we think we are, there's a process to purify us, purify our body and our minds, so that we can actually feel like being with the Lord all the time, not just when we feel like it.
And this is from Charlie. Bhakta Charlie.
Haribol Bhakta Charlie.
Says, Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you for your daily readings. It is such a nice place of shelter every evening. I really liked the remedy for false ego, to serve the Lord's saintly devotees. I also have a question. In the introduction we read that within every object is the spirit soul. My understanding was that the spirit soul was only within the living entities and not in every object. Can you talk more about this?
It's a matter. Everything is spiritual, in the ultimate situation, in the ultimate sense. Everything is spiritual because everything emanates from the body of the Lord, and the Lord's body is completely spiritual. But by His by His will, some of the forms act as if they are inert. So that means the degree or the development of consciousness. We can see this in the varying degrees of consciousness that are there, even in the different forms of living beings. In the body of a child, a little baby, they may have a boil or something. One time, Prabhupada's daughter her son had a boil, and he took the child to the doctor, and he asked the doctor to put some. It needed to be lanced, so he said, "You should put some, anesthesia there, make it." He said, "No, they don't need." And all of a sudden he went, "Whip," and then he went, There was no big, because they don't feel as intensely. Just like a child can fall on the ground and not just get up and keep going. But an old man like me falls on the ground, it's like a huge deal. Your bones break or huge contusions come and so many things. So, the body of a very little child, they don't think of sex life because their body, the consciousness is not developed. The body is not developed, first of all, and the consciousness develops according to the body. So like that, every form ultimately is conscious, but it is manipulated by the Lord so that the material forms are inert, but ultimately there are spirit souls everywhere. This is not an easy thing to understand. You won't be able to understand it just by hearing it once. You have to again and again and again read these books, try to understand, read these books, try to understand. It's inconceivable. There's unlimited numbers of universes and unlimited numbers of souls in each one of the universes. And there's a line to get into the universes. Brahmajyoti. They're all waiting in line to get into the universes. Sometimes when Lord Chaitanya comes and when Krishna comes, they deliver the whole universe, all the living beings go back to the spiritual world, and then it immediately fills up again, instantaneously. how are we going to understand that? Not possible. So therefore, first things first. First, let us control our senses, learn to control our minds, and hear these wonderful explanations of Sankhya and the creation of the universe and the laws of nature, and how to understand them and how to live within them, so that we can be given the vision ourselves. It's not that we can just understand these things just by hearing them either. We have to actually take the process and become purified to the point where we can perceive them directly for ourselves. That's the process. The whole book that we're reading is the process. But like I said before, in the Kali Yuga, we're not very qualified. We're not very long-lived. We're disturbed constantly. And our memories are short. Our lives are short. So therefore we have to be given special concession. So when we hear all these things from the Bhagavatam, it's not that we have to do every one of those things exactly the way it says in the Bhagavatam, otherwise we're finished. No. Lord Chaitanya came and gave us this Nam Sankirtan, and Prabhupada came and brought it all over the world and explained to us how to spread Krishna consciousness, mainly by hearing these books and distributing them. If you dedicate your life to distributing these books, giving this knowledge to others, you will be given from within the heart the understanding. The knowledge will manifest itself in the heart by the grace of the Lord. Tesham satati yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam dadami buddhi yogam tam yenamam upiyantite. Yenamam upiyantite means how to come to me. So, yes, how there's consciousness everywhere, and some of that consciousness is acting like it's not. And how that works, that will be revealed to us in time. It's not that you can just get it immediately. You have to take the process. Therefore, it requires enthusiasm. It requires eagerness. It requires an intense desire to come to that platform. And then enthusiasm, and then patience, and then determination, and regulating the senses, and going through all these things until spontaneous attraction comes into the heart. And then we can understand everything. Is that okay? Well, it's okay for Radharaman and Abhaya, but I was wondering if it's okay for anybody out there.
Charlie says thank you.
Thank you, Charlie. Thank you very much. Okay, we'll stop there. It's a little over an hour. Hare Krishna. Thanks very much, everyone, for coming to hear the Srimad Bhagavatam. It is the goal of life to hear the Bhagavatam in the association of the devotees. And gradually, all of us will wake up together. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Go Premanandi Hari Hari Bol. See you tomorrow, same time, right here in Hive, the Haven. Hare Krishna.